Alright, so now it's time to make the script to move our character. So I'm going to do assets, script, and we're going to do create, JavaScript, player, controller, script. Okay, and we're going to double click on that. And I will wait for it to pop up. It did not. Well, actually, we'll drop it onto Charles here. And then we will open it up again, hopefully. Come on. There it goes. And, okay. So, alright, good. So, what we are going to do is this. Okay. It's going to be kind of a weird system. So what I want to do, if you looked at the other game, is basically I want him to move at these discrete movements. Okay? So I'm going to move over like 1 unit, and then move up 1 unit, and then move over 1 unit, so on and so forth, right? So he moves these units around, and that's how he gets where he wants to go. Now, the problem with that, and like I guess what we're dealing with is this, is that I need him to basically, like I want him to move to the left, so he can move to the left, right? There he is. Then he can move to the left. Then he runs into this. The problem is that like I can just have him move left and move right. There's nothing to tell me that he can't move those directions. So what I need to do is basically test to see if I'm going to make like another, like a block that goes in front of him before he moves there. And it's going to say, is there anything touching this block? And then if there isn't, then he'll move over. If there is something touching it, it will not let him. So if he goes up here, nothing's there. He'll go here, nothing's there. And then he'll go here and be like, oh, there's a block there. So it won't let him move there. So basically we're going to first establish where he's going to move an object there with a collider. And then if it says, hey, there's nothing here, then it will move him over. And that's basically how the script's going to work. Okay. All right, so here we go. So we're going to make a couple of variables up here. And we're going to do a variable that's going to store the current position, okay? Because basically, in order to say where the next position is going to be, it's going to be relative to the current, right? So like if he's going to move to the left, I need to know where he is in X before I can say move to this location in X. Okay, so that way the next position is just the current position plus a transform amount, right? Plus like moving to the left this amount. So I need to be able to store the current position, and this is obviously just a vector 2, right? Because it's an XY, and then we need a variable to hold the next position where I want to move to, and that's again going to be a vector 2. All right, and then we need a variable that's going to hold how much it moves each time. So we'll just do move amount, okay? And that's going to be a float, and I'm just going to generically set this to 0.1. I don't really know what it needs to be. I just like to have something in there. And then we're going to need a variable that is the transform node, or the transform component of the player, to actually move them, right? So this is a thing that moves the player. So, you know, you have your transform, and then there's the translate, rotate, and scale. This is how I'm going to access that. So this is the player transform, and it is a transform. Okay, that's the type it is. I'm going to need another variable that's going to hold the thing that's going to be doing the testing. So it's going to be our block tester, and it's going to be a game object. Okay, object. And we're going to need another variable that is basically says whether it's blocked or not. And it's just going to be a Boolean. So is blocked. Okay. And it's going to be a Boolean. And we're going to set it to false initially. Okay. So basically the idea is that is it blocked? And it's going to say no. But we can say it is or it's not. And that's just going to hold whether we are allowed to move or not. Because if is blocked is true, then we can't move in that direction. That's the basic idea. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is back this up a little bit. On my start node, I'm just going to go ahead and do the player transform. And I'm going to assign it I'm going to attach this actually to the player, obviously. So it's going to assign the transform node from the player from using this so that I can access it later on. So I'm just going to do component and then transform. All right, and boom. So that's just going to store the transform. Oops, screwed that up. The transform component into this so that I can access it later. And then after I get that information, I'm going to go ahead and get the current position of wherever it currently is right off the bat. And that position is going to be based off the player transform dot position. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm using it, right from the beginning. Okay, so basically I get the transform component, and then using that, I find the current position and store it into here. Okay, now we're going to use the update, and basically this is where the meat of it is going to be, and this is what's going to allow it to, whatever. So okay, so basically we're going to have if the input dot get button down is horizontal, okay, then it's going to do this bit of code. Okay, now, and then we're also going to say if, I try to make a space in here because this is going to be quite a bit of stuff. We'll put a space there too. If input dot get button down is vertical, it's going to do this bit of code. Okay. And we'll just put a space in there. All right, so basically the idea is that it's going to say if get button down. Now, you'll notice that it's not get axis. It's get button down because it's just going to execute. It's not going to have a value in it. So it's just going to be, if you press this button, it's just going to execute it, and that's it. It's not a variance. You know how like if you push a button for like jump, and if you just tap it, it'll jump a little bit, but if you kind of jump and hold the button down, it'll jump a little bit higher. This is just going to do it. It's not going to like go farther. It's just going to go a direct amount. So it just executes it. So that's why it's get button down and not get axis, because you may have noticed in other ones we have used get axis. Now, just as a reminder, in case you don't remember this, but so input is the input, and then inside of that is a function for get button down, which I just described. And then horizontal, where I'm getting that from, is this. So if you go to edit, and you can change these input, prior status input, you'll see I have these axis, right? And there's all sorts of ones. There's ones for fire and all sorts of things. Now there's horizontal and vertical. Basically what the idea is with this is that instead of saying, okay, if they push the up button or the left button, or they push W or A or Q or whatever, what it has instead is it has like horizontal. So basically it has multiple different inputs that all represent horizontal. So for instance, like you can see that the defaults are left and right. So the left and right arrows do that, but also so does A and D. That does left and right. Okay, because a lot of times when people play, like shooters and stuff, they use the ASD. They don't use the arrow keys. That way they have access to the keyboard a little bit easier. But you also see that you can have the mouse, and they also have it to joystick. So basically the idea is that I can set up the left and right to be like multiple things. So no matter what the input is, it'll work with multiple aspects. And this is especially useful if you're exporting out to multiple different platforms. Like if you're exporting out to, like, let's say a handheld device or a console or a PC, I can set up a horizontal here. And instead of having to say, oh, if they push left on the keyboard, or they push the A button, or they push left on the joystick or on the mouse, I just have it all set up to one thing here, and I just access it from here. It's just easier. Okay, so that's what that's from, and that's what the horizontal is, and vertical is the other direction. So by default, I'm assuming people are going to use the arrow keys. But so basically, I'm going to say if they do this, and obviously this is going to be go left or right, and this one's going to be go up or down. Okay. And so basically I'm going to say, okay, do that. So if they press that, what I'm having them do, what I'm having to do first, I'm going to do a variable horizontal test. Okay, that's what, I'm not going to say it out loud, but you get the idea. Okay, and it's going to be a float. And it's going to be equals input dot get axis raw. So this is kind of what I was talking about before. And it's going to be horizontal. So it's going to horizontal. So it's going to basically store the raw input of horizontal. Okay, this just says if horizontal is pushed, so meaning left or right is pushed. This is going to store the value in a float. So it goes from -1 to +1, -1 being left and +1 being right. And the reason why I'm using that is I'm going to use that to test. So I'm going to say if that horizontal test here, come on, horizontal test, if it's less than 0, which basically means if they push left, because left would be -1, so that's less than 0. If that's what they do, then obviously the position, I'm going to want them to move to the left, right? So that's kind of what this is going to be. But that's the first thing. It's going to be a lot of like, there's going to be stuff buried in stuff, buried in stuff. Okay, so basically if they push left, the next position, so, next POS, position, not the other thing, I'm going to assign it the value of a new vector 2, because I'm going to do a new vector 2. It's going to be a new location, and it's going to be on the current POS, so the current position, dot x, because I'm only worried about x in this case, I don't care about y, minus the move amount. Okay, so basically the idea is that if they're moving left, then obviously it's got to move negative space, so it's going to move -1 in x. So it's going to be what the current x position is minus the move amount that in this case I have 0.1, but that'll probably have to be changed because I don't know the size of the scale of what I'm doing. Okay, and then we're going to say, and then the other aspect of this is going to be current POS dot y. Okay, and basically it's just going to stay at the current. I'm not going to move up and down. It's just going to move left. So basically the x is the only one that's going to change here, and then we're just going to keep using the current y position. Okay, so that's what next position is going to be. It hasn't moved yet. I'm just storing it in there so I can utilize that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my block tester, okay, dot transform dot position, and it's going to be equal to the next POS. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my block tester, which I haven't attached yet. Basically, I'm going to make a collider, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to transform it, the position of it, to this next position. So I'm going to move that first. So this basically just moves the block tester. Haven't tested it. I'm just moving it over to where I want to move to. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if the if it's not is blocked. Okay, so basically if I did this, if I did is blocked, if this means if this is true, so if it is blocked, then it's not going to let me move. But I actually want to do if it's not blocked. So if you put an exclamation point, that means not this. So if it's not true, it's going to run this bit of code, which is basically means it's going to move. Okay. Now I haven't done anything to actually make the tester yet. Because what I'm going to have to do is on that block that I make, I'm going to have to do an on trigger enter that basically if it hits something, it's going to trigger it, and that's going to turn this block tester on or off. It's going to turn this on or off. This is blocked from the block tester, but right now it doesn't do that yet. I got to make the block tester, but this is basically what this is going to do. So I was going to say if is blocked, it's going to run this bit of code, and it's just going to say we're just going to transform dot position to the next position, right? Next. So basically, if it's not blocked, go ahead and move, and then the new current position is going to be equal to the player. well, I'll wait and continue this.